It's official. Super Bowl week is here. It is Monday, February the 5th, and we're going to have a ton of pro football, no college football, pro football NFL Super Bowl 58 talk all week long here on WagerTalk Today. And I am your guest host, Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez this week, but don't you worry. Co-host Teddy Covers will be here Monday through Friday along my side, and we're going to be talking a ton of Super Bowl in every episode, but let's not forget about the daily sports as well, because the bread and butter moneymakers here Monday through Saturday, the next 6 days and nights, will be college and pro basketball and NHL pro hockey. And we've got a loaded show breaking all of it down today. We've got Bryan, Leonard talking some college hoops. Teddy Covers going to look at the Super Bowl. Also Adam Trigger talking college hoops. And once again, Teddy, big game breakdown, what bettors learned, Super Bowl action, and then also some props from Andrew McInnis and also a little NHL from our resident Canadian, since it's a Prez-free zone this week. Teddy Covers along my side. Let's bring on our first guest, Bryan Leonard. And Bryan, going to get to two huge college basketball games here on Monday night from you here in just a moment. How you been doing, my man?
I'm doing fine. Teddy and I are sitting here in a rainstorm, and our producer's out in California, hoping he's not floating away, but getting some rain that the West Coast needs. So hopefully everybody's safe out there. I know we don't drive very much in rain here in Vegas, so they've got a lot of accidents. But yeah, it's a different than what we were expecting, and I'm sure all these people coming in to Las Vegas for the Super Bowl are feeling the same way. As I think it's going to rain maybe up until Friday. So hopefully it'll clear out for everybody.
You can't ever complain about rain in this town. It never rains. When it rains, you go, all right, I love the rain today. Yeah. That being said, perhaps not what Vegas was hoping when it came to the Super Bowl. That said, it should supposed to clear up by this weekend. Bri, let's talk some college hoops. And obviously it's a limited slate today, only 4 games on the normal board, but the extra board's got some interesting games that you want to talk about. Let's start with Coppin State at South Carolina State. South Carolina State, a 9-point favorite, total 135.5. Tell me, how do we bet this one between two teams that I don't even know their nicknames?
Well, it's a game that I sent over last night at a little bit better line, but actually both these games, the lines moved a little bit, so it tells us that we're probably on the right side. The bad news is we're losing our line value. But the Eagles of Coppin State have had a really rough season. 2-18 overall, 1-5 in the MEAC. Both victories were at home by 19 over Maryland, Baltimore County, and by 3 over Maryland Eastern Shore. So if Coppin State wants to win any more games this year, how many more Maryland teams are out there for them to play? Because those are the only ones they're having any success with. But on the road, 12 of 13 contests were decided by double digits. So not only are they losing on the road, they're losing on the road badly. The offense has been their downfall with an effective field goal percentage of 41. That's one of the worst I've seen all season long. They just don't put up the points. And normally when you go on the road, it's even tougher for your offense. So we're looking to fade Coppin State here and play South Carolina State. South Carolina State hasn't set the world on fire by any means, but I think they're the better team here, and I like the way they're playing. They got a 7-15 record on the season, but they are 3-3 in conference action. They're peaking right now, having won 3 of their last 4 as of late. As I said, they're playing much better ball right now, and they do have a 5-4 record on the season at home. So this is a team, it's actually 2 teams that have been terrible on the road, and luckily we get one team playing at home, and they have done very well here. So the line's going up a little bit, but I'm still willing to lay it here with South Carolina State.
And there's some urgency on the South Carolina State side. The 9s that I was just talking about a minute ago, they just got taken out. We're looking at 9.5 right now. In many locations, you can still find 9 on the East Coast books. If you're looking at the WagerTalk Live odds screen right now, you can get all of those line moves free every day over at WagerTalk.com. Second game that you wanted to talk about, Bryan, Houston Christian at New Orleans. This is another one where we're seeing the sharp money flowing towards the favorite, New Orleans. They're the privateers, aren't they? I know at least one of these. Yeah, -6. They're a 6.5 starting to pop up. Total 160.5. This game not expected to feature a whole lot of defense.
No, the Huskies of Houston Christian, 5-15 on the season, 3-6 on the Southland Conference. Only one of those victories came on the road, very similar to the game we just played in that regard, on bad teams playing on the road. That win was against Texas A&M Conference Lions. The Huskies beat New Orleans 88-80 at home about 2 weeks ago. New Orleans is one of those teams that's very similar, playing better at home than on the road. But Houston Christian, since that time, have dropped 3 straight games, with the 2 games following this contest being played at home. If they get down early and often early, I don't see a big comeback here because they have not played well on the road. And as I said, the next 2 games are at home, and they could do any damage they can on that court. But still, 5-15 on the season. Not a good year for the Huskies. Privateers, as you mentioned, 7-15 on the season, 2-7 in the Southland, but very similar to tonight's opponent. New Orleans has won just once on the road all season. They're 6-3 in this building, though, and they've dropped 6 straight overall heading into this contest. So, in my regard, this is a must-win game for the hosts, and they've got back-to-back road games on deck. And as I just said, they have not been good on the road. This is the game New Orleans needs. I like to play teams who are on a losing streak and are playing a team that they can beat up on. And unfortunately, a lot of other people are looking for the same thing as this line continues to go up too. So revenge and major home road dichotomies have us laying the points here with New Orleans.
Yeah, Brian, obviously these extra games, the extra slate is not much public money. So when these lines are moving, especially overnight, early in the morning, you know which side the sharps are on. And Brian Leonard sent these over last night, and it's about a half a point to a point higher now. So Brian's on the right side in both of these most likely. And it is a rematch from the earlier meeting. You hate to say revenge when you have 2 terrible teams, but it is a second meeting. And Houston Christian won that first game, shot 64% from 3, 58.5% from 2 at home about 2 weeks ago, and they still only won by 8. So see a regression here. By the way, Brian, if you look at the Ken Palms, 22nd and 23rd fastest teams in the country, these 2 squads. So like Teddy said, should be a shootout. It's a high-scoring, high total for a good reason. We joked Friday I used to only have Ivy League games when you and I were doing this back in the 90s. I think Monday's become kind of the ugly under-the-radar card because there's only 4 games on the main board. Adam Trigger's actually going to break down 2 of those spotlight games, but I love digging deeper on the extra board, and that's where you can find some value, and Brian Leonard did that. Brian, what else you got going on at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, today is the first day back from the All-Star break, so there's a couple of hockey games out there. I'm probably not going to have any plays in that. I'm trying to find a way to play the Islanders here. I like to play teams who enter the break on a losing streak, and they have done that, and they're playing a Toronto team who's probably picking right now. So looking for ways to play the Islanders. Probably won't make my card here, but I do have one play up in college basketball today. It's on tonight's card, and it is on the added board. That's the only play we've got for clients today. The 2 plays I gave you here are free plays. But get that one big play up in college basketball today. And now that hockey's back, we'll start loading up and adding to our seasonal profit in college basketball and the NHL.
It's Brian Leonard, NHL hockey, college basketball. He just gave you 2 freebies. He's got another one, a bonus game on that added board is a strong best bet for Monday at WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, a little foreshadowing for you. We have $5 customer appreciation tomorrow on Tuesday. So everyone out there, be sure to check WagerTalk.com tomorrow on Tuesday. You'll be able to pick up a single play from each and every capper for just $5. And that'll include some advanced Super Bowl selections as well. And that'll be good only on Tuesday, tomorrow, February the 6th. Bigger promotion, I want to mention 2 of them, actually. First of all, that Super Bowl to Super Bowl promotion is still active. I know Super Bowl Sunday isn't for another 6 days, or it's next Sunday, but you can get on board right now and you'll get the next 6 days and nights for free. You don't have to wait until Sunday to get a full 365 days until Super Bowl 59 next year. Get the next 6 days and nights when you get on board right now. Why wait? It's a bonus week for free. Works out to just $23 a week, actually $22.50 a week if you add that bonus week right now. So check that out. If that's a little bit too big of a package for you, you can also try the rest of February special, which it gets you everything with an instant $100 discount. Normally it's $299. It's just $199 for the rest of February. And keep in mind, it's a leap year. So you've missed 4 days, but you got 25 more. That works out to just $8 a day for every sport, every play for the rest of February. So 2 great packages if you're starting to take a serious, consistent investment approach for every capper. No promo code needed, including Teddy Covers and myself, Steve Merrill at WagerTalk.com. Teddy, we're going to get to a little more college hoops in a moment. 2 of the big games on the main board tonight with Adam Trigger. But first, before we do that, let's do a little what bettors learn. We're going to do these each and every day, and we're going to probably have a little bit of a Super Bowl tilt. I have a feeling on most of these this week. What do you got for us on Monday?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. What bettors learn this week? We're going to be talking about Super Bowls, big game breakdowns. We're going to be talking about Super Bowl props. It's Super Bowl week, and the Super Bowl's in Vegas this year. We're going to have a lot of fun. But Steve, I want to ask you. I want to talk. I've got 2 of them written up. I've got my favorite Super Bowls in 25 years since I've been to Las Vegas, and my least favorite Super Bowls. I got top 3 for both. Where should I go today? You tell me.
Go with favorite. And I'm going to pull them up here.
All
I can't
right.
even remember them. I remember them when I was a kid. I can't even remember the last 10 years. So let's go favorites. Let's start positive
Sure.
on a
So
nice Monday.
favorites for me, like there's 2 that absolutely stand out. The first year I was in the Tuesday group, I think it was 2002. And that was when I was really like, this is my 4th year in Vegas. I'm really getting a feel for things. I'm meeting, I've got good contacts now. I'm meeting with other cappers, and we have a big Super Bowl party. All the guys from the Tuesday group are meeting over at a bar. Bucks, Raiders. And we all had Tampa. We all had Tampa large in that game. We love the matchups and all of that. And that game was as easy and fun as any Super Bowl you'll ever have. The Bucks just killed them. It was over by halftime. We're at the bar with my new friends, and I was excited about betting. That was an awesome Super Bowl for me. The Seahawks over the Broncos was another one that really stands out. That game felt over on the first play of the game. Remember the safety, the bad snap? What was it, 43-8, the final? I was late getting to the party for the Super Bowl. And when I got there, I felt like it was already over. That was easy. That was fun. Seattle blowing out Denver. And a recent one. The last time Kansas City played San Francisco really stood out to me. That was stress. And the fourth quarter was just beautiful. All the props were hitting. The side got there. We're dancing around. And for 3 quarters of stress in that ball game, the fourth quarter, that might have been the best fourth quarter of the bunch, KC over San Fran. A lot of fun, a lot of profits. The good Super Bowls, you kind of remember them forever, Steve. Tomorrow I'll talk about the bad Super Bowls. You remember them forever, too.
I'll take a little bit of a different tilt because I don't have any I have one betting moment. I'll bring that up here in a second. But for me, it's just more, the one cool thing about the Super Bowl is that, yes, we have a ton of props, we have plays, we have a lot of clients, riding on it, but it is a social thing. It's one of the biggest social outing events of the year. And I mean, the moment that'll always stick out to me for the rest of my life, and everybody knows I'm not my Washington Commanders, and I've written them off a long time ago, even before they became the Commanders or the football squad, or not the Redskins, whatever you want to call them. But in the early 80s, mid 80s, growing up in Northern Virginia, I actually was a Cowboy fan. People don't know that when I was like age 5 or 6. I don't think I was rebelling against my father, but the Cowboys were really good in 1980, 81. The Redskins weren't. But then Joe Gibbs gets to town. We start going to games. And I was 3rd grade, 9 years old when they make the Super Bowl. And that was the strike-shortened season, but it was still a really good team. And the fever that they had, and I was hoping Detroit would get that same fever because I can imagine what it would have been like in Detroit this year because I felt that when the Redskins finally made the Super Bowl. Keep in mind, they did make it in 1973, lost as a small favorite to the undefeated Dolphins. But there was just an energy that entire week or two leading up to the Super Bowl. And then the John Riggins run in the fourth quarter was 4th and 1. For those of you that are under 40 years old, Google it. It's one of the greatest plays in the history of pro football. But it's a 4th and 1. They're just trying to get the first down, and Riggins literally barrels over the smaller Dolphins defense and goes like 40 yards, and it ends up winning the game, and it wins their first Super Bowl. So that'll be the memory I always have. It'll never be topped. But as far as a betting moment, I got to get the story straight. It's been about 25 years, but the late 90s, if you recall when Elway, it was his 2nd Super Bowl, I believe, and there was a prop.
That was my first Super Bowl in Vegas.
Right. It was like maybe 1998 or so. And I'm looking here. Yeah, it would have been the January 99, the 98 season. They'd lost to the Packers the year before, 31-24. That was my 2nd year in business. And then they beat the Falcons. They were favored. I thought it was a good play. I thought the Broncos would win, and I thought they would do a curtain call for Elway. And there was a rushing prop on total Broncos who would have a rushing attempt. And it was, I believe, 2.5. And my theory was that Bubby Brister, I believe, was the backup at the time, would come in. They'd have the lead. He'd take a knee. It counts as a rushing attempt. And I'm pretty sure that's how it played out. I have to go back and check. It's been 25 years. But that was one of those kind of the under-the-radar props that I had a really interesting angle on, and it worked out exactly right. So that's one, Teddy, for me, from a prop angle, it always jumps out to me on, every once in a while you can find that.
It's funny because the stuff you're remembering are the ones where it was tight. It was a sweat, and then the last play of the game, he takes a knee. I like the blowouts, man. I like it when it's over by halftime. Those are my favorite Super Bowls where you don't have to worry about anything when it comes to side by halftime. Bucks, Raiders, Seahawks, Broncos, both blowouts. KC, San Fran wasn't, but it still comes on the list.
And by the way, viewers, live chat here, we'll try to check them, but more importantly, do it on YouTube. Even if you're watching live, log in afterwards on the replay. Put them in the comments below. This would be a cool thread to get going. And I'll tell you what, we'll mention them again tomorrow. Teddy's going to do, I think, his least favorite, right? So throw some of those into the show.
Give you a hint,
we'll throw some of those
28 to
out
3.
tomorrow. Yeah. So, hey, comment below. Seriously, today on Monday's episode here, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, if not, if you're watching it live, go back and check it out. Favorite moments and also your least favorite moments or your toughest bad beats in the Super Bowl. We're going to cover those tomorrow on Tuesday. And on the way out, real quick, I got to give another one. When I was in college in the mid-90s, I did a little Super Bowl, parlay prop card for everybody, all my friends. And it's when the Chargers were playing the 49ers. It was the biggest point spread ever, the biggest mismatch ever. And I had first touchdown score. And everybody listed. I just copied the odds, basically. And I put no touchdown, 100-1 for the game. And I had a buddy of mine who's not a sports fan, doesn't like to bet. He's like, oh, I got to do that. He puts $1 down on that. And of course, it doesn't hit. But what was funny about it, it was the highest scoring Super Bowl in history at the time, 49-26. The Niners had, 7 touchdowns on their own. So that is historically the worst bet I've ever seen made by anybody, even though it was only for $1. That was a Super Bowl 29 back in January of 95. So that's another one that jumps out to me all the time, Teddy, when I see the touchdown score props, who will score first. 100-1, no touchdown, and the Niners put up 7 themselves. Anyway, comment below. Let us know your favorite and least favorite Super Bowl moments. We'll get to them tomorrow on Tuesday once again. Let's bring on Adam Trigger. Adam, real quick before we get to your 2 college basketball games, one game jump out to you as a Super Bowl memory?
Without a doubt, Giants winning the Super Bowl 2008. I was a senior in college at Siena. A lot of Siena kids come from the city or the New York metro area, so they're all Giants fans. And they upset the Pats, and we just trashed the campus. It was a great time. Very memorable for me. We probably
the catch on the helmet is pretty memorable for me. And then the wide right with Norwood, who's a guy that grew up in Northern Virginia and went to James Madison even, I believe, James Madison High School up there. When he missed that kick the year before the Redskins won their last Super Bowl, it's pretty memorable as well. So, yeah, for me, it's more of a big, like Teddy, you're right. It's those moments that make or break the game is what I remember. So it's interesting how we had a different take on that. Adam, Bryan got to some under-the-radar college basketball games, but there's 2 big ones on the main card tonight. We're going to get to both of them with you. Let's start with Miami of Florida and UVA. And just like Bryan's 2 games, you sent this over earlier this morning. It was 5.5, opened as low as 4. It's up to 6. Do you still think there's some value here with the Cavs?
I know what's going on here. We got Bryan breaking down the extra board games, and I'm coming on to talk the top
That's
25 games, which is usually the other way around. But yeah, so I do think that the value's gone. I do like Virginia. This kind of moved quickly. I would have probably jumped in at the opener of 4, but that was gone really quick. But I mean, it's a light board. There might still be ways you can get involved here in game betting. Use the money line, maybe like a halftime wager. Point is, and this is something I've brought up on our shows the last couple weeks, I think Virginia's still a little bit undervalued. I also think they're improving. So they're an appealing side to play on. It's just, I don't know that you're getting the right number, and all those things need to, all those boxes need to be checked to make a play. But let's just talk about the game for a minute. Prior to the 6-game win streak, we did a show, and I pointed out that Virginia at home was number 1 in offensive efficiency, and on the road they were dead last. That's a home road dichotomy that it was so glaring that it's evened out since. But I think the point to be made is Virginia's just started to play better basketball, and that has everything to do with Tony Bennett being an elite coach and this team starting to get on the same page. So since I sort of kind of brought that up, Virginia's won 6 straight games. They've always been a great home team, though, guys. I mean, that's something that you go back years, pretty much the Tony Bennett era, the John Paul Jones Arena era. They've been elite at home. One of the best home records you'll find in the country in that span. And they're 12-0 at home this season. So it's hard to believe, that Miami, a team that I don't think is maybe as good as the market kind of suggests they are, certainly isn't as good as it suggested they were earlier in the year. I don't know that Miami's the team that's going to come in here and break that up. Now, if you look at Virginia's 6-game win streak, 3 of those wins were on the road, 3 true road wins. And I think it has everything to do with Tony Bennett figuring out the rotations with this team, figuring out how to get his bigger guys on the floor. And that's just something that was always going to take time with this Virginia team. You just go back to who they lost. Kihei Clark was there forever. Jalen Gardner. They lost like 4 or 5 guys that had been with the program for a long time and played key roles. So it was going to be a new roster. It was always going to take time for Virginia to figure out their rotations, but more importantly, figure out how to play a very complex system. Bennett plays pack line defense, sort of a methodical offense that was always going to take time. The key for Virginia has been Jordan Minor. Okay, this is a guy that was NEC Player of the Year, co-NEC Player of the Year last year at Merrimack. Could not get into the mix with Virginia earlier this year. Now you see him out there playing 30 minutes a game. 6'8", he's a front court player. He's a big reason that Virginia's improved in the front court. And that was kind of my takeaway from seeing Miami play in the Bahamas earlier this year. I went down with Kelly and the other, the rest of the crew for that tournament. And I felt like Miami, 2 big takeaways. One, no Isaiah Wong, a little bit less shot making, although this is still a pretty good shot making team. But 2, the front court is a little bit small. Norchad Omier is a monster, but he's undersized at his position. He's almost always up against someone bigger. And I think that Virginia now with their new rotation of bigs can really make him work. And that's another potential issue because Omier missed the Syracuse game with an injury. Matthew Cleveland missed a game, recently with an injury. So you have to question just how healthy this Miami team is right now. Going on the road, Virginia team that seems to get better time in, time out. I know it's a big number, but I still kind of lean Virginia. This could be one of those games where everything clicks and they win by 20.
So conceptually, I love the idea of finding teams that underachieved early, that we expected to underachieve early, that are now finding their form. So I get it. And we're looking for teams like Virginia. I am too. But man, Miami, we talk about tough as nails. Look at Miami on the road. They haven't lost a game by more than 6 points in conference play yet. They took Wake to overtime. They hung with Syracuse. They beat up Notre Dame. NC State was a tight game. Is this a team we can comfortably lay a price with on the highway? Because one thing we know about Miami, they're always well coached, and they don't lose many games by margin.
So, Teddy, I was talking to someone about the ACC the other day, and I really, truly believe this. There's like 3 teams that belong in the NCAA tournament in this conference. It's so bad. It's so unbelievably bad this year. It's Duke, North Carolina, and then I think Virginia is playing their way to being that, right? Like they're probably that right now. So the teams you reference, I've seen all these teams play in person this year. The Syracuses, the NC State. I mean, they're just bad basketball teams. So I don't know that like that laundry list of teams you rattled off, gives me much confidence with Miami. The one thing I will point out with Miami is they can shoot it. And typically teams that can beat the pack line just shoot over the pack line, right? So that's where Miami could hang around in this game, is the fact that they still, I know I reference Wong not being there, but they still have Nigel Pack. They still have other shot makers. And if they're just going to step out and shoot over this defense, then they could hang around in this game. So I didn't bet it for that reason. I thought the number was a little big, and I at least respect Miami enough where, if they get hot from 3, they'll probably hang around. But if those shots aren't falling, Teddy, they could lose by 20. So I lean more toward Virginia. I prefer Virginia and Tony Bennett at this point, but it wasn't a play that made my card.
Yeah, Adam, it's so funny that you brought up Jordan Minor. And I knew you'd bring a small college tilt to your big game analysis with Merrimack. But I'm walking out of the William & Mary 1-point loss against Charleston Saturday. And one of my friends who's there was a UVA alum. And we were talking UVA basketball. And he was saying, this guy from Merrimack, who I think is a Division III school. I go, no, they're Division I. They got betting lines on them. Jordan Minor. And he's like, he's finally getting worked into the system. It took him a while to get the hang of it. And as you said, Bennett's a great coach. It's a complex system. And his numbers, it's night and day. This is a guy that had 2 points or less in 11 of his first 13 games this year. He had 6 points or less in his first 14 games, single-digit minutes. And now he's playing he played 29 the other day, played 30 a few games before that. He's putting up double-digit scores on half the games the last month or so. And Teddy and I talked about this the other week. Something you look for in the second half of the college basketball season is teams that are maybe working on new players or underperformed in the first half. And
they're not Jordan robots, Minor, Steve. They're human beings, right? These kids are human beings. They have to, you go to a new place, a new team, a new system. You might not learn that in November and December. And who better to get someone up to speed than Tony Bennett, top 5 coach in college basketball. So I don't mind Virginia as a play on going forward.
Yeah, and I think at home as well, Miami won't shoot as well. So it's interesting to take UVA Miami tonight at 7 Eastern. And then Adam Trigger used to go visit his big sister, Kelly Stewart, when she was at K-State when he was a little boy. So I want to get his take on this one. Kansas at Kansas State tonight, the other big game at 9 o'clock Eastern.
Yes, she'll be there. She's going to this game this year. I could not make it to Manhattan, Kansas for this Monday game. I got to be honest. I badly wanted to bet against Kansas here, but I feel like I'd be taking a bad number. If we're just talking numbers, I made the number 6.5 here. So I'm kind of shocked to see it down as low as 4 some places. I think probably 4.5 or 4 it was when I jumped on to do this show. So if I was just betting numbers, I'd have to consider Kansas. But there's more that goes into it than just the betting number. Spot motivation wise, I think Kansas State would be the right side. I talked about this last year, both times. I feel like I did this show both times. Kansas played Kansas State last year and talked about the game. And I do believe that K-State puts a lot more into this quote unquote rivalry than Kansas does. Especially when the game is in Manhattan. Kansas has been so good for so long that all these other Big 12 teams think Kansas is their rival. So Kansas just gets it week in and week out. I mean, just look at the weekend, for example. Kansas Houston was never a thing, but of course they're both great. And that game was built up, kind of all week long. They've got to go and play Baylor. I believe Baylor's in Lawrence this weekend. That's another huge thing. So just from Kansas being as good as they've been for as long as they've been good, they have rivalries all over the place. And I think because they dominated this rivalry for almost a decade, obviously Kansas State's gotten a few more wins recently. I just think that this is a little bit bigger of a deal for Kansas State. Now, I said I'd love to bet against Kansas. I feel like Kansas got let off the hook over the weekend by Houston just shooting the ball as poorly as they could have shot the ball in that game. Kansas turned the ball over 17 times. Houston turned it over twice. Yet Kansas somehow won by 13. Well, we know how they won by 13. Houston shot in the 30s from the field. So I do kind of have Kansas on my list of teams that I'd like to fade. Another reason is Kansas. So that's not a fluke. They've been turning the ball over all season. Part of the reason is they don't get great dribble penetration to the rim. This team relies on a lot of ball movement, shot making. They do have good post players, Dickinson's solid and whatnot, but not a ton of dribble action going to the rim. And the one thing where there's no question, Kansas is the better team. Kansas State's roster is a little bit underwhelming in my opinion, but I love Jerome Tang and he knows how to get his team up for big games. He's just a fantastic coach. And his teams play incredibly hard, which could actually play here, right? You've got a great atmosphere. Manhattan will be sold out. It'll be awesome. As far as an atmosphere standpoint, Kansas State will be playing hard defensively. And if they can turn Kansas over, if Kansas is going to turn it over, 15 to 20 times, Kansas State could absolutely be in this game. The reason I don't think the number is big enough, Kansas, there is some relevance to this, right? This team has lost on the road to West Virginia. They've lost on the road to Central Florida, 2 teams that I actually make worse than Kansas State right now in the Big 12. But the problem is in those games, respectively, the lines are 7.5 and 9.5. And you can even throw Oklahoma State, a team that just edged Kansas State out this weekend, into the mix. Kansas won big at Gallagher-Iba, but the line was 6.5. Now you're telling me I only get 4 points or 4.5? Makes me feel like the line is a little short. So I lean Kansas State from all of the sort of, intangibles here, the spot, the fact that they've lost 4 straight, the great home crowd, the fact that Kansas just had to play Houston on Saturday, has Baylor coming up, but I just couldn't get involved at this number. I feel like I'm not getting enough line value to lock in with the Wildcats.
So the lean is Kansas State, but it's not an official wager on a limited Monday card. We're going to break down the games we can break down. Adam Trigger, great information. What do you have to promote at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, you said it, Teddy. Very limited Monday. I could sit here and complain about the college basketball schedule, but you'd already be hearing me do it for the 100th time this year. So Monday will be a pass for me. We do have 2 great specials. The Super Bowl special is still up. I believe there's a rest of February special that's up right now. That is, if you like college hoop, if you think I'm going to pull off what I did last year, this would be the time to jump in on college hoop because I was kind of equally cold coming into February and then just went on a tear February and March. I hope that happens again. But 2 great specials, and I believe those are for any Wager Talk capper. So if you don't want my plays, go get someone else's and take advantage of those specials. And I'll be on the College Hoop Show breaking down Tuesday games because that's how bad it is tonight, Teddy. There's so few games I'm interested on this Monday card that I got to talk Tuesday games on the College Basketball Show, 2 p.m. Eastern on WagerTalk TV.
Yeah, Adam will be on with Drew Martin, Rob Vino, and he'll also be on tomorrow with myself and Bryan Power in the College Basketball Show, both today on Monday and tomorrow on Tuesday, every day this week at 2 o'clock Eastern live here on WagerTalk TV. And don't forget the NBA Tip-Off Show also on after 4 o'clock Eastern, and that'll be live all week as well, as we have a huge card on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So no small card pre-tape will be going live at 4:15 Eastern, Monday through Friday for the NBA show as well. Ski Prophet, Andy Lang, and Rob Vino on today's episode on Monday. All right, Teddy, we got Andrew McInnis around the corner. He's going to break down an NHL game tonight, also look at a Super Bowl prop. But I'm going to give you first dibs on a Super Bowl prop for your big game breakdown. And I like this one, by the way. This is one I talk about in my Fade the Public video each year, which will be up later this week. Yet another reason, hit subscribe and the bell for instant alerts. This one's a little bit of a contrarian call, Teddy. I think the squares often go the other way on this one. Give it to us.
Sure. We'll be talking Super Bowl props all week on Wager Talk today. And we're going to start today's big game breakdown with a look at the shortest touchdown of the game, over under 1.5 yards. This is one of those props where it makes sense to look at the history. And what have we seen? Last year, shortest touchdown of the game, 1 yard. The year before, 1 yard. The year before, 1 yard. The year before, 1 yard. In fact, 7 of the last 8 Super Bowls have seen the shortest touchdown of the game cash under 1.5 yards. So certainly the prevailing trends are telling us in a basically pick-em priced prop that we tend to see a touchdown go in from the 1 yard line. Then we look at the matchups for this game and we think about, geez, these are 2 pretty good red zone defenses. Not going to be easy to throw the ball in from the 11-yard line or the 15-yard line or the 17-yard line for either team. All right. Both teams with feature backs that they're comfortable giving the ball at the goal line. 2nd and 3. You could easily see San Francisco or Kansas City say, we're going to hand off to McCaffrey, we're going to hand off to Pacheco until we get in the end zone. Reasonable scenarios for both of these 2 teams. And again, we're talking about a prop that is not juiced, not significantly juiced in any way. 1.5 yards, it seems so low. Oh my God, you have to get a 1 yard touchdown. Of course, the longest touchdown is going to be over. Steve Merrill just talked about it, referencing this particular prop. The Joes tend to look the other way. Under 1.5 yards, shortest touchdown. Again, 4 straight, 7 of the last 8. I think it cashes again on Super Bowl Sunday. Shortest touchdown under 1.5 yards. The red zone defenses, the game plan, and the prevailing recent history all points in that direction. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Yeah, and Ralph Michaels has a great free chart right now at wagertalk.com. Check out Ralph Michaels. It's the last 14 years of Super Bowl prop results, all the major props. And if you look at Ralph's chart, 9 of the last 14 have stayed under 1.5. But Teddy, 3 of the overs were 2 yards, and another one was 3 yards. In fact, the last 14 years, there's only been a shortest touchdown of more than 3 yards once, and that was 8 yards way back in Super Bowl 45. And that was the lowest total, I think, of any of the last 14 Super Bowls. It's around 44.5. Packers and Steelers, so it was a lower scoring projected game. But yeah, once again, 9 out of the last 14 with 3 more that had 2 yard touchdowns. So that's 12 out of 14 at 2 or less. And like you said, the reason this continues to work is because the public doesn't think it makes sense. And that's why we get a pick 'em price instead of minus 200 or so. So I love that prop from Teddy Covers, and he'll be doing them all week long here in his big game breakdown. All right, we're going to talk another Super Bowl prop in a moment with Andrew McInnis, but he's our resident Canadian because it's Prez free zone tonight on Monday. So, Andrew, we got to bring you on to talk a little bit of NHL and just 2 games. Brian Leonard mentioned that earlier, but they're back from the break, and you're going to take a look at something here in the Leafs and Islanders game tonight at 7 Eastern on Monday. First of all, do you handicap any differently here the next couple of days and nights? And maybe that's part of this handicap. What are your thoughts here on the NHL coming back from the break?
Great being here with you guys. Yeah, I definitely do handicap things a little bit differently. I would say that leading into the All-Star break, I look towards unders. Post All-Star break, I'm looking towards overs here, guys. I like the Islanders and Maple Leafs up and over 6.5 here for tonight. These teams have met twice so far this season. Exact same scoreline in both matchups, 4-3. And both those meetings have been in New York. The Islanders playing at home. Now this one is in Toronto. But when these two teams meet, there's always some type of huge deal around it because John Tavares, captain of the Maple Leafs, used to be the captain, of course, of the New York Islanders for a long, long time. But I expect kind of a lot of like flat defensive legs. And, when I look at these teams coming out of the All-Star break, I don't believe the teams ever lose their ability offensively. They don't lose their scoring touch because of a few days off, right? In my opinion, the defensive intensity is what these teams lose, which creates sloppy mistakes, turnovers, leading to odd man rushes, and as well the goaltenders. Samsonov, the goaltender for Toronto, he was on a great roll, guys, going into the All-Star break. Do you think a guy like him even wanted a break? When you're on a good run, you want to just keep that going. It's the same thing that Bryan was talking about earlier about betting on teams that were slumping. Sometimes you look at certain teams, players, goaltenders in general, that probably wouldn't want to go into the break because they were playing so well. Physicality is a huge thing. When I look at this matchup, these teams, for some reason, like I said, they do not like each other, guys. And obviously physicality leads to penalties. Penalties lead to power plays. Power plays lead to power play goals. And most of the time when you're handicapping 5-on-5. You cannot predict power plays. But when you look at a physical series like this one, and both teams, their power plays being a huge strength of those going into the All-Star break, I expect a lot out of both clubs here. Matt Barzal, Bo Horvat, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, I believe the Stars will shine tonight. Looking at the over 6.5 in this one.
So I have a follow-up for this, Andrew. As you're talking about these, what you want to do after the All-Star break, you're saying we're looking for overs. We expect the defense to be less. Would you play a grand salami over tonight? I'm seeing 13.5 out there. And tomorrow, would you play a grand salami over tomorrow? Would you look to play all the games over and expect to cash, what are there? I think 8 games tomorrow. Expect to go 5-3 or better. Is this one of the scenarios where maybe blindly playing some over stuff makes sense?
I believe it does, Teddy. I like that. The grand salami. I don't bet that very often. I think that's kind of a dice roll, but in certain scenarios like this one, I am a huge believer. And we saw it at the night before the All-Star break, the very last day before the All-Star break happened. There was a 1-0 game and like a 2-1 game. Like the first game, it looked like neither guy wanted to be there. And I saw a clip actually from a few years ago from a game as a guy was mic'd up before the All-Star break started, the last game. And he looked at the referee and said, "Did you bring your whistle tonight?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" "Yeah, I have my whistle with me." He goes, "Don't blow the whistle. All right. We want this game to be over as fast as possible." So I think that before the All-Star break, they just want to get out of there and go to the hot, weather. But after the All-Star break, looking for some goals here.
Interesting take. And for those of you that are new bettors, the grand salami, and they do it in baseball, at least they used to, I don't know if they still do, is the total for all the games on the board. And that was the, what's that called? The grand pepperoni, Teddy? Didn't they have a different name for the baseball one? Or one's the grand
football? Yeah. They were doing it for NFL for a couple of years. I haven't seen those in years, though. They did it, and either they got beat pretty badly or no one bet it. I'm not sure which happened, but it was there and it's gone. But grand salami, you can still find it daily in hockey. You can still find it daily in baseball at many sports books. Again, that's the over-under for all the goals scored in that sport for any given day. Steve?
Yeah, and Andrew, like you said, you don't always use it, but if you have a lot of overs on that night's card, if you'd like 4 or 5 of the 7 games to go over, it's a time you might want to look at it as well.
Well, I know you're Mr. Fade the Public, Steve. I'm sure you'd agree with me that when in baseball season, when people see all these atrocious pitchers on the mound, people just think it's the best time to look at it, as if the odds makers don't also know that, right? Like that to me is the funniest with baseball, is because obviously the number is changing, with the pitchers on the mound. People will all of a sudden just bet all the overs because they see a bad pitcher and not actually looking at all what the number is.
Yeah, and I've never played it once, but I would say in hockey, when you have 5 or 7 games, it's a little easier than NFL or baseball when you have 15, because you get so much random variance on a 1-0, 12-0 game that it comes back to the mean. So you probably want to look at it when it's a 5 to 7 game card, and hockey would be the reason that you see it more prevalent. All right, Andrew, I'm going to give you a chance now. Teddy gave us a Super Bowl prop. Your chance to give us one here on the way out for Super Bowl 58. What are you looking at?
So everyone's betting overs, right? It's a very popular time, Super Bowl weekend. Everyone's excited to look for players to do something great for them on Sunday. I'm looking for this player not to do a whole lot for me here. Looking at the under rushing plus receiving for Brandon Ayuk. However, I will say, I mean, it's only a couple yard difference at some books as far as the just receiving yard numbers and the rushing plus receiving overall, as Ayuk has barely been rushing the ball all season long. There is that slight chance they could give it to him. But look, guys, we have a Kansas City Chiefs team that was the 6th best team as far as receptions allowed per game. They were the 4th best team as far as receiving yards allowed per game. And the type of receiver that he is and the type of routes that he runs, they only allowed 6.7 yards per target. You know, with all the players they have, with C-Mac, with Elijah Mitchell, with so many great guys out there, Deebo Samuel, even Juwan Jennings, I believe, could have himself a day. There's just a lot of factors to me that it would take for Brandon Ayuk to end up getting over this number. I think there's going to be a very spread out offense. I believe we're going to see a very run-heavy offense. If it's working, I don't see why the Niners will go away from it, right? If C-Mac is having himself a day, if they're mixing in the secondary guys, I'm expecting a lot more of a dink and dunk and a smart game plan here. And we think back to last week, guys. Brandon Ayuk caught that pass that was like off the opponent's hand, off a helmet, resulted in a 51-yard catch. If it wasn't for that, it wasn't really that good of a day for him. And you look at the path that they've had over their last several weeks. I heard you guys talking about it here on this show. I heard on all kinds of shows on Wager Talk talking about that Lions defense. Guys, this isn't the Lions defense. KC is much different this time around than the last time around they were in this matchup against the Niners. This time, they're more so relying on defensive football. Still have Patrick Mahomes, still have Kelsey and some great receivers. But to me, if KC has a chance in this one, they're playing great defense. And I believe they hold Brandon Ayuk under 63.5 rushing and receiving.
So you just gave us Ayuk under, and in your analysis, you gave me 15 reasons to bet the under for the game. Is that the way you're looking?
It is. I believe this is a defensive one. I think it correlates, Eddie, right?
Adam Trigger was on, Brian Leonard was on, but we finished with a strong guest, the Canadian, Andrew McInnis. Andrew, great to see you. What else you got going on at WagerTalk.com? We talked about those great specials, Super Bowl props, NHL. What else you got going on?
You guys mentioned 2 great ones. The rest of February, big game to big game. How about one more? Code 50 off 30 takes $50 off a 30-day NHL pass, 30-day all sports pass, 30-day NBA pass. That's 50 off 30. I'm pumped up, guys. Props, sides, totals. NHL is back. I've done a lot of work during the All-Star break in the NHL to focus on my bet on and bet against teams. And as you guys know, you sign up for all access, you get those plays sent to your email the second we release them.
It's Andrew McInnis, WagerTalk.com, and I'm Steve Merrill. That's Teddy Covers. Stay tuned. Teddy's going to be on in 15 minutes with an opening line report, part due, I guess, for the Super Bowl. And Teddy, once again, all the viewers, comment below on the replay here on YouTube so we can log it, talk about it more tomorrow. Your favorite, least favorite moments. Russell Deck said all the Buffalo Super Bowls a bit of disappointment. So that's a little foreshadowing for tomorrow's episode with the least favorite. But great to see everyone in the live chat here. But more importantly, replay here on YouTube. That's when we can look at the comments and reply back. So we appreciate all the support. Check out those specials on Wager Talk this week. The Super Bowl to Super Bowl all year with one more week included for free. Or if you want the rest of February, instant $100 discount, just $8 a day. No promo code needed on everyone's page right now, including Teddy Covers and myself, Steve Merrill, at WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, I will see you again tomorrow. Take us home.
Yeah, let me highlight that for just a minute, Steve, because it's important. If you guys want a long-term package, we always talk, get a long-term package. Now's the time to do it. We have a February deal. We have a Super Bowl to Super Bowl deal. And the price points are reasonable, and they're as low as they're going to go. So if you want to get on board with any of the cappers at WagerTalk.com, there's 31 of us. Today, an excellent day to do it. That's going to wrap it for the Monday edition of Wager Talk Today. As Steve said, stay tuned for the NFL opening line report with myself and Drew Martin, top of the hour. And, of course, Steve and I will be back tomorrow for another edition of Wager Talk Today. Between now and tomorrow's show, enjoy the games.